When anxiety hits, it feels very real, doesn't it? It feels urgent, it feels dangerous, and your first instinct is always, how do I make this stop? I don't want to feel like this. So you try to breathe, you try to distract, you try to analyze, you try to avoid, but actually nothing seems to work. In fact, the harder you try, the louder the anxiety gets. Now, if this is you and you're feeling completely exhausted and frustrated, I really want you to know that you are not alone. Because I know very, very well how exhausting it is to live inside a body that feels like a complete battlefield. I lived actually with anxiety for more than 20 years before I got the right help, the right knowledge, the right insight that I needed to get out. And in that period of time, I would fight every anxious thought, I would fight every anxious emotion, every what if. I hated it, really hated it. And when my anxiety was at its worst, I felt completely hopeless. I felt disconnected. I felt exhausted. It nearly felt like I had lost myself. I'd lost my joy. I lost my confidence. I lost my life. And if this is how you feel right now, then please hear me when I say that you are not broken. You're absolutely not broken. The reason why you feel like this is because you're stuck in a mechanism that no one taught you to understand. But once you understand how this mechanism works, then things can really start to shift for you. I'm going to start with something that almost no one really explains, and that is the root of your anxiety. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're struggling with social anxiety, health anxiety, performance anxiety, doesn't matter. The root of all anxieties are rooted in time and thought, and it has nothing to do with the here and now. Yes, your body feels the response now when you're going into fight-flight mode. You get all these physical symptoms and your body gets flooded with adrenaline and cortisol and getting prepared to fight or flight or freeze. But your mind is never in the here and now when you experience anxiety. What happens actually is that your mind takes an old past memory, an old past painful experience or painful emotion from the past, brings it into the here and now because it gets triggered by something that reminds them of the past, and then it catapults it into the future. It projects it into a catastrophic future. And this is where you have all those worst case scenario movies on repeat in your head. I'm sure you recognize that. Now let me tell you a personal story. It's quite personal, but I'm very, very happy to share, just to show you how anxiety, your anxiety also, is anchored in time and thought. So in my 2 last years of primary school, I was bullied by this group of snotty boys because I was a foreigner. And in that period of time, I felt excluded, not belonging, not enough. It was horrible. I hated those 2 years at primary school. Now, my mind had stored those painful bullying experiences as danger and had started to associate it with new groups of people. So afterwards, whenever I was about to meet a new group of people or going to a social event, my fight-flight response would kick in. Now, it had nothing to do with the here and now. It had nothing to do with this new group of people I was going to meet. However, how our built-in survival mechanism works is that it wants to protect us from ever experiencing something that ever felt as threatening to us. Now, I'm 100% sure that if you are struggling with anxiety now, then what your body is trying to do is trying to protect you from ever experiencing something painful, a painful emotion or a painful experience from the past ever again. I'm 100% sure. And how can I be so sure? Well, the reason is because this built-in survival mechanism that we've got is so incredibly predictable. Now, here's the second important insight that you need to know before I can tell you my 4-step process that you can use immediately in order to get out of that anxiety loop. So keep watching. Second insight, your survival mechanism, your fight-flight freeze response is not only very, very predictable, it's actually not very smart at all, because it cannot tell the difference between a real threat, like a lion in the room, or an imagined one. So if you have an anxious thought and you latch onto it, your fight, flight, freeze response is going to be activated as if a real threat, a real danger was taking place. Now, and this is how you become smarter than your fight flight response. And this is why the knowledge I've given you in this video is so important and key, because you can't stop fighting until you really understand that what you are dealing with is a mechanism. So if you get stuck into a loop of anxious thoughts, the first thing is to become aware of that you're stuck in that loop. And how you become smarter than your fight flight system is when you actually step back and you go like, okay, so what am I fighting here? What is really going on? Is there a real threat here, or am I just stuck in time and thought? And if you're stuck in time and thought, you can just let it be. There's nothing to fight. And if you just let it be and not keep latching onto those anxious thoughts, what's happening is that you send a signal to your fight-flight response, which isn't very smart, that you are safe. And it will actually gradually start to switch off. And all those physical symptoms that you are currently feeling will be switched off as well. Now, I want to share another personal story with you. This story is about my turning point, the first time I became smarter than my fight-flight response. And this is exactly where I want you to go as well, because this is going to really unlock the door to freedom for you. So I was on my way in the car to this well-being lunch at work. Well, actually, it didn't make me feel well at all. Now, my anxiety started already a week before this so-called well-being lunch. My mind had created all these worst-case scenarios. I was going to be sitting on my own. I was going to feel excluded. I was going to feel rejected. I was going to feel not good enough. And I believed all these thoughts. I believed them all and I listened to them. So while I was sitting in the car, this panic started to build up and build up, and I could feel myself just starting to hyperventilate. And all I wanted to do was just to drive home, say that my car had broken down and I couldn't join this well-being lunch. But then suddenly something started to shift in me. And I actually asked myself, what am I fighting? What exactly am I fighting? I was sitting there safe in the car, nothing was happening here and now. And it was like there was a shift inside of me, like I saw that this was all a mechanism. So instead of fighting it, I said out loudly in the car, come on then, you want to give me panic? Well, give me double panic, give me double hyperventilation, come and sit with me. And then something incredible happened. And that was that full-on panic attack that I was expecting never happened. Instead, my body started to soften. And at the end of it, I was actually laughing out loudly in the car. Yes, I was laughing because I finally understood what was really going on. I finally understood that what I was trapped in was purely a mechanism and had nothing to do with the here and now. And the moment I stopped treating my anxious thoughts as real danger, that is when things really started to shift for me. And this is exactly where things will start to shift for you too. Now that I've given you this insight and knowledge, it's time for me to give you my 4-step process that you can use immediately in order to get out of that anxiety loop. Now, the first step, really important, is to become aware of when you are triggered. So become aware of when you are stuck in anxiety, when you are stuck in this loop of anxious thoughts. Now, the sooner you catch it, the better. So the sooner you catch it, the quicker you get out of it. Second step is to ask yourself. So this is a question I asked myself. So the moment I became aware, okay, I'm stuck in this loop again, I would ask myself this question. Okay, what am I fighting? Yeah, what is really happening here and now? Is there a real threat? And actually, all of the time, there is no real threat. So actually, I don't need that fight-flight response to be turned on. Step 3, let it be. You do not need to latch on to anxious thoughts. You don't need to overanalyze. You don't need to interpret those anxious thoughts. You can just let them be, because they are not the truth. They are about the past and the future, not about it now. So you can just let them be. Think about that Beatles song, Let It Be. Step 4. This is really important because this is where the really hard work is going to go into, and that is repeat. So in a day, if you're really struggling with anxiety, you could be doing this process like 50 times a day. Every time you do that, what is going to happen is that you are going to reprogram your mind. And this is how I got rid of my social anxiety, my relationship anxiety, my performance anxiety, even my claustrophobia. Because what you are doing by not reacting to your anxious thoughts, your anxiety, what happens is that every time you send that signal to your body, I'm safe. So bit by bit, your body is going to learn that those situations that used to trigger your anxiety, are actually not dangerous at all. Now, if I could break out of this, you can too. You are so much greater than your anxiety makes you believe. If this video helped you, please subscribe. In my next video, I'm going to show you a little technique that you can use to stop that urge to latch onto those anxious thoughts. Because let's be honest, it becomes a habit, doesn't it? It becomes such an automatic response that it's very, very hard to actually pull away from it. If you want to go a little bit deeper, then I could highly recommend my own book called Imprisoned by Anxiety: How to Unlock the Door to Freedom. It not only explains my journey and how I got out, but it actually shows you the steps, the knowledge and insights that you need in order to really break free from what I call the anxiety prison.